1 Kings chapter 2, I'm going to give you a second to find that. 1 Kings chapter 2. And this is going to be part 2 and probably the last part of the Art of Manhood. Everybody say the Art of Manhood. I don't know if that was everybody, but everybody say the Art of Manhood. Whenever you see a man in his right place, and I want to emphasize that position, in his home, men are stabilizers when they're in their right place. Men, and I wanted to say this as we talk about manhood. I want to say this very quickly. Even as we deal with manhood, just because we celebrate manhood does not mean that this is an attack on womanhood. We can celebrate manhood without destroying womanhood. Y'all with me on that? Okay, because God made us both. He made us both differently. I said he made us both differently. Now, I know this society in our time and all that, there's, the transgender this and all this kind of stuff that we just, in this culture, accept. God has never accepted that. He made you either a male or he made you a female. He did not make you one of them and then intend for you to change and be a different one. I said he did not intend for you to make you one of them, and then somehow or another he made a mistake. He intended for you to be a female when you were a male or a male when you're a female. He doesn't do that. I just want to make that clear. I understand that in our society that's kind of promoted, but that's not the case. So just because we are elevating and celebrating manhood does not mean that we are de-emphasizing anything else. But when there is a man or a father in his right place, in his home, men are stabilizers. If they're in their right place, and I want to emphasize that, if they're in their right place, a man, particularly for his children, are like training wheels. You ever seen a child just learn how to ride a bicycle? Have you ever tried to let them ride a bicycle without training wheels? Now, eventually, they could probably learn after a whole lot of pain, but men are like stabilizers. What I did when my daughter was recently learning how to ride a bike a few years ago, and so we put training wheels on and she ride for a little while, and she got a little bit more balance. I raised them up a little bit. So that over time, over a little while, a few weeks or so, she was able to get it with a whole lot less pain. Men are like the ropes. You ever seen a freshly planted tree where the gardeners put ropes around so that the tree doesn't grow up crooked? So there's a rope over here, and there's one over here, maybe a third one over here. So that tree, as it gets larger, does not grow crooked, because once it starts growing crooked and it gets too large, it's too late to change the direction of the tree, of the growth. That's what men do. Men are like a cast. You ever had anything broken? God forbid. But if you ever have, what they do is they put a cast on you. And the reason that they do is because if you break a bone and you don't set that thing right and have it set, then it can grow back crooked. So you put a cast on it so that it doesn't knock it back off place while it's healing. That's what men do. Come on, stay with me. I said that's what men do. Everybody say manhood. I want to celebrate it because in the time we live in, manhood is under assault. Homosexuality, and I have said this before, is nothing more than an assault on manhood. It is an assault. I mean, it's other things too, but it is an assault on manhood. When you see the rise of lesbianism is really strong, particularly in middle school and high school. You see girls, but what you're going to find is a common thread most of the time, is that there is a young lady who has been hurt by men, either abused by her dad or uncles or someone, either physically or sexually or emotionally, and so therefore she gravitates to women. So I don't want a man because men hurt me. And then the other woman that she's likely went through the very same thing. Come on, stay with it. This is not an attack. I'm just being honest. So there's a very feminine young lady, and then the other one acts like, dresses like, and looks like a man the best she can. Why? Same thing with male homosexuality. Very, very effeminate men most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. It's an assault on manhood. God intended for the man to occupy a certain place in the family, a certain place in society. He intended for us to be men. He made us a certain way, like we are, so that we can have the place we occupy in society. If you remove that, everything goes to pot, because men are stabilizers. If you take the man out of his place that he's supposed to be in a family or society, everything goes to pot. Oh, come on, say it with me. When you go to the store and you see products, and all of y'all go to see products, what you're going to find is you're going to see a name brand product, depending on what it is, and then you're likely going to see an imitation of that product. If you go to Walgreens and buy something, you're going to see the regular name brand, and then you're going to see Walgreens version of that brand. And normally the imitation is significantly cheaper. And if you ask the employee, sometimes with the employees say, well, what you're paying for in the name brand is just the name. You hear anybody ever tell you that? What you're really paying for is the packaging. You're paying for the name. I'm going somewhere with that. And that says just as good as this particular thing. Now, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but this has happened to me, where I've heard that and decided to buy the cheaper version or whatever that issue. I don't remember what it was, but I remember one time I bought something that was an imitation. It was supposed to be the exact same thing, supposed to have the exact same ingredients, and so I bought it because it was cheap, and I never forget getting that thing and said, oh my God, what in the world is this? Because even though it was supposed to be the same, it was not the same. Y'all ever had that experience? Maybe y'all have never had it, but I have had it. Well, I have bought something that is significantly cheaper, that was an imitation of something else. I didn't want to spend extra money for it. And I have learned, when something is important to me, give me the name. Now, maybe y'all don't do that. I've told my wife, as I've gotten older, there are some things that are just worth the money. If it's something important to me, give me the name. Just give me the name. Because the name is worth something. Give me the name. I don't mind paying a few dollars more if it's important to me. Give me the name. Now, if I just want some water, I don't care whether it's Aquafina or Dasani or give me Nestle. I don't care if it's just purified water. But if it's something important to me, give me the name. Give me the name. Which is one of the differences between a male and a man. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's all about the name. See, the body parts of a male make him a male. That's how you can identify. Just look at the body parts. That makes him a male. His decisions make him a man. Body parts make him a male. His decisions make him a man. Where do you get that from, Pastor? Well, my Bible tells me, if you go back and read Genesis, that man was created in the image and the likeness of God. And if you see a male who is unlike God, he is an imitation. He is an imitation. Come on, I am going somewhere. Stay with me. He's an imitation. Y'all have seen that? The Bible says in Genesis, God created man in his image and after his likeness. So when you see a male who is unlike God, he's an imitation. Okay? When you want the real thing, give me the name. If you're a single lady, stop messing around with imitation. You better get the name. Let me say that again. If you are a single lady, stop messing around. You better get the name. Beyond that, stay with me. I'm going somewhere. I want to put all this together. Have you ever been somewhere, stay with me, you're buying a product, and you ever looked at the ingredients? You ever paid attention to what's in the stuff we buy? You ever paid any attention at all? You ever looked at the ingredients? By law, they are supposed to tell you what is in it. By law, they're supposed to list the ingredients and let you know what is in it. By law. So you ever paid attention to what's in it? What the ingredient? Now look, you know, some of y'all go back home and look at them. You can be surprised as what's in some stuff. So I remember one time in particular. Well, before we go there, this is allergy season. Y'all ever took Sudafed? Why is it called Sudafed? Because the main ingredient is pseudoephedrine, which is the main ingredient. So therefore, it is called Sudafed. And then, of course, there may be some other ingredients. But if you take, I know you don't. This is Dr. Amber Clayton. We're gonna recognize you later. She just finished her PharmD recently. So if I make a mistake on the drugs, just tell me later. But if you take the pseudoephedrine out of that, it's not Sudafed. What is it? It's just a collection of ingredients. What's the main ingredient in aspirin? It's aspirin. You take that out of it, it ceases to be whatever the name is. I am coming back to that. But I remember looking at ingredients in one item, and there was 10% of this particular thing, and there was 15% of this other particular thing, and you ain't gonna believe this. Then it said, and it went on to one or two other things, and then it said 49% other ingredients. I said, other ingredients? What does that mean? I mean, you can just put anything in it and just say, well, this is just part of it? I mean, almost half of it was other ingredients. They didn't even tell me what was in it. Other ingredients. So what does this have to do with manhood? I am going somewhere. Other ingredients. So we buy this stuff and have no idea what's in it. Come on, stay with me. Have no idea what's in it. We buy the cheapest stuff, having no idea what's in it. See, it's the other ingredients sometimes that messes us up. Stay with me. See, all of us, there's stuff that we have in us. See, I am convinced there ought to be a law. Just like there's a law that whatever product you put out, they have to list the ingredients. It ought to be a law that before you get married, you have to list the ingredients that's in you. They ought to do a physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual evaluation of your life and tell your prospective spouse, this is what's in him. You better decide now, do you want him or not? Do you want her or not? Because sometimes looking at it, you can't tell. It ought to be a law. This is what they ought to have to do with a physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual evaluation. Hand you the form and say, this is it. This is what's in him. It ought to be a law. What's really in you? What is really in you? Everybody got 1 Kings? I'm coming back to that in a minute. 1 Kings, everybody got 1 Kings? Y'all can go home and look at the ingredients on everything you buy. You ought to. Put some stuff you don't know what you're putting in you. 1 Kings chapter 2, has everybody got it? Talking about the art of manhood. Look at 1 Kings chapter 2, look at verse 1. Now the days of David drew near that he should die. And he charged his son Solomon, saying, and I have said this before, but I'll ask you, what would you tell your children on your deathbed? What would be the last words of your children if you were about to die? What would you tell them? What would be the last words that you would tell them? And that's interesting because what you would tell them is what would be important to you. What would you consider to be the most important thing in life is what you would tell them. And it's interesting because this is King David, the greatest king in the history of man. The Bible says was a man after God's own heart. The Bible, more than any, but very few people in the Word of God have already been told what their specific place in the eternal kingdom will be. David is one of them. And so this is a man. So when he is giving Solomon his last instructions, it ought to be something we pay attention to. Here we go. His deathbed, this is what he says. He charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all earth. Be strong, therefore, and prove yourself a man. Be strong, therefore, and prove yourself a man. How? How? How do we do that? I mean, I'm just, how? If he says be strong and prove yourself a man, how? He wouldn't tell him that without giving him the way to do it. He would not, in his dying words, tell his son, be strong and prove yourself a man without telling him how. Now, if you are a woman, you ought to pay attention too. All right, here we go. I'm coming back to that. Be strong, therefore, and prove yourself a man. How? Here we go. This is how. Look at verse 3. And keep the charge of the Lord your God. Keep the charge of the Lord your God. To walk in his ways. To keep his statutes, his commandments, his judgments, and his testimonies. That's a whole lot. Be strong, therefore, and prove yourself a man. And this is how. And keep the charge of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, his judgments, and his testimonies. Why is that a big deal? Because the main ingredient in a man is God. And if you remove the main ingredient, it ceases to be what the name. It ceases to be what the name of the. You can't take Sudafed out of Sudafed and it's still called Sudafed. You cannot take God out of a man and still call him a man. You can call him something else. I think I've said it before. How did I describe it before? A male of the human species. Think the way I described it? He said, keep the charge of the Lord your God. Stay with me. To walk in his ways. Keep his statutes, his commandments, his judgments, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in what you do and wherever you turn. I want you to notice something that he didn't say. Notice that he did not give his son the instructions for how to be a better king first. He did not give him, because he's the king, he's getting ready to die. His son Solomon is taking over the kingdom. He did not give his son Solomon instructions about how to organize the kingdom first. He gave him instructions on how to be the right kind of man first. Because you're going to be a sorry king if you're not the right kind of man. You're going to be a sorry king if you're a sorry man. He gave him instructions on how to walk with God first. Everybody say first. That's a big deal. Because I would dare say to you that if you would interview most people in this country on their dying bed and they were giving their son instructions, they'd probably tell them, make sure you work hard, boy. Work hard. Provide for your family. Make sure you take care of yourself. Do this and do this and do this. But why is that backwards? See, that's what the world says. God says, seek me first. If we put a job or a career or financial resources first, God will always be at the bottom. Always. Always. Satan will see to it that if our career is first, if our job is first, if our financial security and other things are first, that God is always going to be at the bottom. You want to know why people in this country struggle? That's why. That's why. Because God is never first. Never put a career, job, money, or otherwise before God. Never do it. Never do it. And let me tell you, it's so easy to do. Because for men, stay with me, it's an issue of esteem. We get our esteem and our self-worth for what we do. We make a lot of money, or we have this occupation, or we do this. And so our esteem comes from our ability to pay our bills and provide for our family and the kind of career we have and the job we have. And more than anything else, we're moved and motivated to make sure we have enough money. We can pay the bills. We can do this and we can do that. And we tell ourselves, all the stuff is good, but you ain't nothing if you can't pay your bills. So we're going to pay our bills. And so all of that's in our mind first. For women, it's an issue of security. I just got to make sure things are taken care of. And so nothing comes before paying the bills and putting food on the table. And if you can't put food on the table and you can't pay the bills, well, you're just worthless to me. Oh, come on, somebody. That is a huge deal. And you can read later, and David gave Solomon instructions about how to organize what some things to do in the kingdom and take care of some of his affairs. But the first thing he said, keep the charge of the Lord. Now, it sounds good to say this in church. I can say it right now, and we can tell ourselves, I know God is first, God is first, God is first, God is first. I hear all that. We'll know that by the decisions we make. I say we'll know that. Is God first, or is our career first? Are you? I would never let a job take me all over the country just because they're going to pay me another $10,000 more without God saying this is where I've assigned for you. God is just not going to do good to me just because I go wherever I want to go. His blessings on my life are contingent upon my obedience and me being in the place where he's assigned. He doesn't assign my place just because it's somewhere I want to go. He doesn't assign my place just because this is somewhere they're going to want to be. They're going to pay me a little bit more money. He's not going to assign my place because I got a great opportunity across the country and I got to take this. Okay. Come on, somebody. Now, let me first of all, I am not encouraging people not to take an opportunity. But the first thing we do is say, God, where have you sent me? Because it doesn't matter how much more they pay you, if you're out of place, then we can miss the blessing of God. Are y'all with me? So I mentioned a minute ago ingredients. Come on, stay with me. If you want to know the ingredients of a man, just like if you buy something and you don't want to know the ingredients of that thing, it's listed on the box. Well, sometimes understanding the ingredients that's in a person is a little more complicated than that. But it is most critical to be able to recognize what's in a person. Come on, stay with me. I want to take my time on this. It is most critical. There's a couple of ways you can tell. And ladies, particularly if you're a single lady, you're here, you're watching, you want to know? There's a couple of ways you can know. Are y'all ready? Who and what surrounds this man? Who and what surrounds him? What kind of music does he listen to? Please understand, music is powerful. Don't ever underestimate the influence that music has on your life. Don't underestimate the power that music has on your life. What kind of music does he listen to? Who speaks into him? Who has spoken into him? Just like when you look at the list of ingredients on a box, normally it gives you the percentage of that ingredient that is in that particular thing. So if you look at a man, say, well, it's 5%, his godly grandma tried to help him when he came over our house and went to Sunday school. Unfortunately, 10% of what's in him is gangster rap, because you listen to that foolishness all the time. The other 15% is knuckleheaded friends that have been speaking in him. Okay? And then it might be that his mother was angry and bitter and ungodly. And 30% of what's in him is what she told him. Then the other 40%, did I get that right? Yeah, I think so. If I got my numbers wrong, forgive me. What was in his daddy and uncles? What did they teach him? What kind of men that he was around taught him? Oh, come on, now listen. Now I ask you a question. Would you want to marry a man that had 5% of a godly grandmama, 10% gangster rap, 15% knucklehead friends, 30% ungodly, angry, bitter mama, and 40% of foolish and ungodly men, father and uncles that taught him? Why y'all so quiet? I mean, I'm just asking a question. I'm just asking a question. Would you want that? Okay. Because see, sometimes, ladies, then you got to ask yourself, what's in you? Sometimes what's in you is attracted to what's in him. And if there is foolishness in you, then it is also attracted to the nonsense that's likely in him. I can't tell you how many women I've seen on, it's just throughout my ministry and life, and just watching social media, say, I want to hood this, I want this kind of. Why? Why you want that? Can I ask you a question? Have you ever seen anybody that's in the whole gangster rap thing ever get married and live happily ever after? You ever seen it? You ever seen the quote unquote power couples in Hollywood ever live happily ever after? You ever seen it? I'm just saying, have you ever seen it? No. You know what you find is that this person is with this person, they're together 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, then it ends with a sex tape and they're with somebody else. I'm just being honest. Have you ever seen it? No. But that's what we aspire to be. You want to know what's in them? That's one way. You know another thing? One of the things that is unique about drugs is there's something called side effects. If you ever watch a commercial about advertising drugs, and there's always say, well, it does this and this and this and this and this, and it can do this for you, and this for you, and then everybody, they're showing the person real happy, and then they go real fast through the side effects. Well, and this can happen, and it could end in death. You could be disabled for the rest of your life. Yeah, and of course, they're going to emphasize that, but that's just, they got to say it by law. So these are the side effects. So they have side effects. Whatever's in a person has side effects. And you can tell what's in them by the effects that you see in their life. You can tell what's in them. And this is the thing, same thing for me. If I'm a man and I see something in me, and there's been times in my own life I don't like this, something's in me, I don't like it. Because I can see the side effects. This is not a good thing. Uh-oh. Mm-hmm. And you want to know? See, I can determine whether God is really in a person. I can just look at what is their effort and drive and frequency that they have and value that they have for the Word of God. Because you cannot separate God from His Word. I'm going to say that again. We can't. God and His Word are one. We cannot separate God from His Word. We cannot say that I love God and value God and then we do not have any value for His Word. We can't do that. That's not true. We cannot separate God from His Word. Uh-oh. So I know we don't like to hear that because there's something, I've talked about this before. There's something in our country, and you see this not just in our country, but in humanity in general, something called the halo effect. And what the halo effect is that when you ask a person about something that they consider to be a positive attribute, then they they don't really lie. They just fudge a little bit when it's about themselves. So if you ask a person how frequently they go to church, they may say, well, we go 3 times a week, when they really or 3 times a month, when they really only go once. How much do you give? Well, I give 5% when they only really give 2. It's called the halo effect. We just like to, we want to boost ourselves up a little bit more. We're not as bad as what, we're just not that bad. Oh, come on, somebody. So when we hear stuff like that, we the first thing we do is we start to, excuse ourselves. Oh, come on now, let's stay with me. Because that's the reality. No matter what's in you or how it got in you, all we have to do is we're just one decision away. See, that's the good news of the gospel. It's just one decision away. Because the reality is every man, all of us, have got junk in us. And what we want is more of God. We want the percentage of the Spirit of God in us to increase. Well, there's just some things we have to do in order for that to happen. But it can happen no matter what's in us now. If we just come to him and say, you know what, we got to come to him first. We recognize and just be honest with ourselves. No, I'm not going to lie about this. This is a problem. And I need to get those knuckleheaded friends out of me. I need to get this gangster rap crap out of me. Or this other nonsense out of me. So that more of God can be in me. And then when more of God is in you, then we see the side effects. See, when I thank God I'm married, and God gave me his, thank God for that. But if I was a single man, and I was seeing this woman, just meeting them and getting to know them, and I just hearing them cussing and stuff like that, you're done with me. People say, well, they're just human. No, they're not. They ain't got nothing to do with being human. Cussing, F this and S this and D this and GD that, that's not human. That's not being human. Okay. You know what that is? That's what's in them coming out. That's what's in them coming out. Revealing what's in them by what comes out. Jesus said it's not what goes in the mouth that defiles a man. It's what comes out that defiles him. So I want to know what's in there. You just told me a lot. Good. C'est la vie. Oh, come on, somebody. See, we know what's in them. And I know as I'm dealing with this, and some of us saying, well, sometimes, we all imperfect. We all imperfect. But let's not give ourselves excuses for stuff coming out of us that should not have been in us. Are you with me? And if it was in us, and all of us got stuff in us that shouldn't be in us, then at some point we got to say, Lord, that should not be in me. I need more of you so this comes out of me. That when people hear me speak, whether I'm in peace or I'm happy or angry, that they don't hear something foul coming out of my mouth. Oh, come on, somebody. Okay. Everybody say the Art of Manhood. I want to be able to tell my son when he leaves my house, and we've had this conversation before, we watched something and it's a whole lot of profane stuff, this person doing this, and so you have never heard that come from the mouth of your parents. You have never heard that kind of language come out of my mouth. And I asked, have you ever heard it? Have you ever heard this come out of my mouth? No, sir. Well, then you're not going to say it, and you're not going to be around other people who say it all the time. You're just not going to do that. Have you ever heard your mama talk like that? No, then you are not either. Some of y'all say, well, Pastor, that's too late. That's why we need grace. Because it doesn't matter what it is, that may not be my issue, but I got them too, just like you got yours. And we all need the grace of God. But at some point, we look ourselves in the mirror and say, God, this is what's in me. I don't like what's in me. Help me get it out. And listen to me, and I want to say this, please tell ladies, because this is the thing. Sometimes because of the way God has made women to connect with men, there is this fallacy, and I say this often, ladies, you cannot change the ingredients that's in a man. You cannot do it. What you can do is enhance what's there. And you want to make sure that whatever you enhance because of what's in you is something that's godly in them. What you don't want is nonsense in you, and then all of a sudden there's 15% of foolishness in him, and you increase it to 30. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that come on, somebody, are y'all with me? I love the way Mike Murdoch puts this. He said, every man has a king and a fool within him. And the one you address is the one who responds. Turn to 1 Chronicles. I'm going to finish with this. 1 Chronicles. 1 Chronicles chapter 12. And I'll pray for Pastor Burden. Working on my time. 1 Chronicles chapter 12. We're going to finish with this. 1 Chronicles 12. So you want to know what's in a person? Just watch the side effects. I tell ladies all the time, you see a man, he gets mad, and then when he's angry and he just rips the door off the hinges and cusses everybody out and throws stuff, and then 10 minutes later he's calmed down and crying and repentant and loving. You know, that might be a clue. You know what? It's just time for me to, because there's something in him that need to get out of him before I'm with him. And you can't help him with that. Y'all got 1 Chronicles chapter 12? Now, as sure as I say that, any woman in this situation, knows none of y'all are here, but somebody might be watching, they will say, well, that's not my man. He just does that, you know, once every too many months, and he's getting better at that, and he's going to be fine. I just know it, just as sure. Has everybody got 1 Chronicles chapter 12? 1 Chronicles chapter 12, y'all got it? Look at verse 23. Look at verse 23. Now these were the numbers of the divisions that were equipped for war and came to David at Hebron to turn the kingdom of Saul to him. Now look at that last part. According to the word of the Lord. This was God's will. God was the one that anointed David. He was the one that said, you are a man after my own heart. God was the one that anointed him to be the next king. This wasn't some ambitious thing on his behalf. This was orchestrated by God. And the people, because you cannot be a king unless you have an army, a kingdom. This was God's people. These were his people. These were the sons of Jacob. The 12 tribes of Israel, and they were doing God's will. Now watch this. Now, stay with me. That was in verse 23. Skip down. So listen, stay with me, ladies. Hear me well. Every man, I've said this before, every man makes a splash. Every man makes a splash. The way we put it some time ago is the blast zone. Every man makes a splash. Every man makes a crater in life. Every man. Everybody look this way. Every man. If you have a son and he's 2, he will make a crater. He's going to make a splash. Every man makes a splash. Every man makes a crater. And either it is a splash and a crater of godliness and wisdom and trustworthiness, and people ever touched by him and that was in that crater or in that splash or blast zone is blessed because they came in contact with him. On the other side, everybody that comes in contact with him, if he's not right and God is not in him, they get ruined and hurt and broken in a trail of tears because of their association with this man. Every man makes a splash. And see, if you're a single parent, you ought to ask yourself, what kind of man will my son be? What kind of splash will he make on this earth? What can I find about the men and the women and the children that will follow this man? What kind of people will they be? How were their lives affected because they were close to him? Every man makes a splash. You would ask yourself about that, about your sons. Every man makes a splash. Not only that, if you got a daughter, you don't want your daughter to be connected with the man making the wrong splash. Definitely, I'm not going to have that. My daughter's in a good crater. She got a good splash. You ain't going to mess that up. Come on, somebody, y'all with me? And these men, I'm almost done, impacted eternity because of their position in David's army. It was their place. God specifically put them in the kingdom of his people at that time. Let's skip down to verse 33. Now you can go through and read all the different men from the different tribes, and they had different character traits that made them unique to fit in David's army. And David's kingdom ascended to the highest place during the time of the kingdom. Solomon did something different. Look at verse 33. I want to finish with this. Of Zebulun, that's the tribe, there were 50,000 who went out to battle. Watch this. Expert in war with all weapons of war. You know what that tells me? They were trained. They were trained. 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 Every man's been trained to do something. I said every man has been trained to do something. Either he has been trained in the ways of foolishness, or he has been trained in the ways of godliness. They were trained. Now watch this. In weapons of war, and look at this next part. Stout-hearted men who could keep ranks. You know what stout-hearted means? And I'm almost done. That means they were loyal. They had one heart. They had one mind. They were not double-minded. As a matter of fact, in other translations, that they didn't have two hearts. They didn't have two minds. They were single-minded. They were loyal to David. And so when David came to the kingdom, they recognized God put him there. I am loyal to you. And the next part of that, the Bible says they could keep rank. Why is that important? Because if you had an unprofessional and amateur army who was not trained, as soon as the heat of battle gets going and people start dying everywhere, they're going to take off and run. But these men could keep rank. So even in the heat of battle, they didn't take off and run. They knew their place and they stood their ground. That mattered if you were a king. Why are you going to have a kingdom and you got to fight an enemy and your current army takes off, starts running? You got to know they're loyal to you, and if I send them there, they're going to keep rank. They're not going to break order just because things get tough. That matters. You better make sure that every man, if you're a man in here, that you are this kind of man. Number one, that you are loyal to God, and that you can keep rank. That you're not going to take off and run just because things don't go your way. How many times have we seen a man go nuts because something doesn't go his way? They could keep rank, stout-hearted. Why does the Bible say that about them? Well, obviously, it's important for the Bible to say that. They were loyal, and they knew how to keep rank. Never out of position. Even in battle. And I'm going to say this and I'm done. If you study, one of the reasons why the Greek army and the Roman army was so powerful, they were well trained, and there was a battle formation called the phalanx. Absolutely lethal. But it required every man to be in his place. That's why they often win a battle. They were outnumbered many times over because they were trained and they knew how to handle that battle formation. Everybody was in formation. If you ever seen the movie Gladiator, and the guy was a Roman soldier, high-ranking soldier, went through all this stuff, but at the end, he was in the gladiators arena. And he taught the gladiators how to use that, how to be as one. So that when they were attacked, he would say, as one, they were, poof. And everybody's sword would cover another, and they were impenetrable. They knew how to keep rank. Well, why in the spirit, why can't we be that way in the spirit? Where we can be loyal and know how to keep rank. I don't have to worry about you breaking off and running, or somebody doing this and crazy when something ain't going, and it's up and down, because life is up and down. I don't want to make sure my son is not like a fool just because things don't go his way. He understands he's been trained in life, and this is how you behave when things go your way or when they don't go your way. You are the same. Everybody say the art of manhood. If you're a man, that's the kind of man you want to be. And if you're a woman, that's the kind of man you want. Stand up on your feet.